This is More Than Work, the podcast reminding you that your self-worth is made up of more than your job title. Each week, I'll talk to a guest about how they discovered that for themselves. You'll hear about what they did, what they're doing, and who they are. I'm your host, Rabiah. I work in IT, perform stand-up comedy, write, volunteer, and, of course, podcast. Thank you for listening. Here we go. Hey, welcome back to More Than Work, everybody. So this week, I have a guest whose podcast I was actually on, so we'll be linking that in the show notes. But she's here to talk about her today instead of listening to me talk about myself. Her name is Yesim, and she is an author, podcast host, and career coach. So welcome to More Than Work.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited. We're getting to chat again. So first of all, can you just say where I'm talking to you from today?
So today I'm sitting in my home office near Cirencester, which is west of London, about just over an hour away from London.
Yeah, not bad, not bad. And did you have a dedicated space to work for a long time, or is that something you added during the pandemic, like a lot of people?
During the pandemic, I was actually still employed by an organization, and obviously we all had to work from home. So I did work from what was the spare room and then turned into mine and my husband's office. And then we would sort of take it in turns to work from here and then the kitchen table and then, do the whole homeschooling at the same time, spinning 100 plates. And then my husband is now back in the office and I get to still use the spare room, which is awesome. Nice. So I have a very, very long commute that takes me, 4.5 seconds. It's quite cumbersome.
Oh man, we might have the same commute. I'm just in my living room and I come from the bedroom to the living room, and when I want to break, I sit on the sofa like a foot away. You were still working in, I would say, just what would you call it? Like a normal job, I guess, like a standard job. You were still employed by someone else.
Yeah.
In the pandemic. And then at some point you switched to becoming a career coach. You got your podcast. You're an author. What led to that? And when did that happen?
It's a really long story, which we could be here for about 10 hours. So I'll give you a very snapshot version of it. I went to university and I did the most generic course I could find, which actually turned out to be amazing. It was international management with German. And after I left, basically all my peers went into corporate, and so I followed suit. Yeah. And I worked for actually an American multinational for about 5 years, and it was really great. I had a great time, met some amazing people, got to travel the world, had plenty of responsibility. It ticked all the boxes. But I just remember going into work one day thinking, there's got to be more to life than this, everybody's sitting in their little cubicles, typing away. And that was probably sort of the beginning of the journey for me in really just exploring what a career can look like. And so I set up an e-commerce business. This is, 15 or so years ago. And then we moved to Australia. And so I had to, find other work while we were over there. We were there for 7 years. And then I became a mum. And then we moved back to the UK. So there's been lots of lots of change in my adult life and in my childhood as well. My dad was a hotel manager, so we moved around a lot. So cut a very long story short, I've experienced a lot of change over my life. And with that, I've experienced lots of different jobs in different countries, different cultures, different organizations. And I kind of thrive on that. I like the newness of it. I like the challenge of something new. And then getting to midlife, I noticed that a lot of my peers were not comfortable with change. They were sort of stuck in jobs that they weren't enjoying. And I guess I was like, well, if you don't enjoy it, then surely you can do something about it. And obviously it's not that easy because we get dependent on the particular salary, or we get dependent on the prestige or the status that a job gives us. And so I was like, well, maybe this is something that I can explore. And so I developed an online program for people to attend, for people who were thinking about a career change and weren't quite sure whether they were ready to make that leap. And that went really well. I did it as a trial with 6 people, and then it sort of snowballed from there. And now I spend all my days talking about career change with people from all over the world, which is really exciting. I love it.
Yeah, that's cool. And I think a few things came up while you were talking through this, but one of them was that just even thinking about a career change, and I've had different sorts of managers or bosses who saw either being at the company we were at was the only option really, right? And the only option was to move up there or stay in one place there or whatever, but that was it. And then other managers who have encouraged me to pursue what I'm interested in and that might be outside of it. And they would be perfectly happy for me if I left knowing that I was going to move forward. And I think what made me think about this was that you said, just you started talking to people just thinking about a career change. Because sometimes that almost seems like a betrayal. Like even if you tell your coworker, God, I'm really like starting to look at other companies, just thinking about what I want to do. They might hear that and go, "Oh, they're leaving the company, and this is it. I can't believe they're doing this." And it's interesting that even thinking about it is a difficult thing to do at some points in your career. So, have you found that too?
Definitely. I think even just thinking about it is quite stress inducing for a lot of people, especially if you've been in the same industry and the same company, which, people of our generation are still doing. They join a company when they leave university or whatever education they've undertaken, and then they stick with that organization because the organization's looked after them well.
Mhm.
They've been promoted, they're climbing the ladder, etc. And it's easy to I don't want to say get stuck because, for some people that's really
Mhm.
they're perfectly happy staying in the same organization
Yeah.
for their whole lives. But I guess I was more thinking of the people that do end up feeling like they're stuck in a place where they don't want to be anymore. So yes, I have lots of those conversations where people are just like, "Oh my God, just even the thought of leaving here is too much. I'll just bury that for a second."
The idea that came to me about more than work was just talking to friends who lost jobs after 12 or 13 years and who were and looking at my own career and just realizing how I defined myself so much on my job that anything that didn't go well there would just be devastating to me and I would lose like my sense of self-worth and I can't do anything else anywhere. I can't succeed anywhere else. And so that's why I started this was to talk about that and what people did to overcome that. I don't know if you were defining yourself by your job, but you're someone who's definitely looking after people to help them not do that and find the work that matters to them. And I think that's important too. Like most of us can't just not work and stop working altogether. I mean, that'd be nice, in a way. Uh, Although it might be very boring. I don't know.
Yeah.
But there's the idea that you can pursue what you want. What's one of the things that you tell people when they're talking about the salary? Because you mentioned that, and that's a big one, right? Like
Yeah.
even for
Yeah.
me, like I work in IT, so for me to go pursue stand-up comedy for probably like a third or less of the pay a year is to me seems daunting. But what do you tell people when the salary is a big thing?
I mean, that's probably the most emotive subject when you talk about career change. I mean, it's an emotive topic anyway, isn't it? Money. We have to have really real
No.
conversations around it because, like you say, most people aren't sitting on a trust fund and they can just, I'm just going to get up and do whatever the hell I want every day. And by the way, I think that would potentially not be very fulfilling anyway. We do have to be quite realistic about it. So I am a realist in that sense that you do have to plan, and you have to plan really well so that making that change doesn't become
Mhm.
stressful. And you can start putting things in place for your next career while you're still employed. So, like I mentioned in my book, actually, some companies massively encourage a side hustle. So companies like Google, for example, because they see that actually their staff are more engaged because they're doing something quite fulfilling outside of work. So anyway, it's sort of setting up some kind of side hustle or, going on an evening course or extra education and just exploring what you might do outside of your whatever work you're used to, your 9 to 5 or whatever it might be, and then putting together a plan. And that plan can be that you're going to gradually phase out your current work and end up just doing the stuff that is actually meaningful to you in maybe, I don't know, 6 months time or 2 years time, five years time. It doesn't really matter as long as it works with what you're aspiring for. And the other thing that I do talk about the money quite a lot in the book because it is such an important topic. And the other thing is, I think a lot of people who've been financially successful in their careers really struggle to let go of, well, this is how much I'm used to earning, and I can't possibly earn less than that. And I think it's quite nice to challenge that belief and to really, I mean, you can be really quite analytical about it and go, okay, well, what are my monthly outgoings? What is a luxury? What am I spending money on that actually probably, if I didn't spend money on that, it's not actually going to affect my life that badly. I don't have to have these things that at the moment feel like necessities, but actually, if I drill down, they are luxuries and they don't actually add that much to my life. So it's really being analytical in that sense and looking at, okay, are there ways that I can reduce my cost? Do I have to earn the same amount? And I mean, people worry that they're not going to earn the same amount, and then other people go on to earn loads more. I think people automatically assume that they're going to earn less money when they make a career change. And that's definitely not always the case. I've got some examples in my book of people who've gone on to earn much more money because that was really important to them. Or, I don't know, I guess sometimes it's a fluke, but, some people do put in that, that they plan to make more money than they are in their current position.
So we talked quite a bit already about the book, and I've started reading it. I already admitted to you I didn't finish just because I'm a slow, methodical reader who actually there are like nice activities in the book, and I was doing them. But it's a good
Yeah.
it's a good read. I think it's lighthearted for the subject matter, and the heaviness for me is just comes from my own thoughts about my career, my job. But your book is called "Ready to Quit Your Job: Your Guide to a Much More Fulfilling Career." So it, I assume, goes along with the course that you created for online, but what got you to actually write the book? Because so many people talk about the book. They're going to write the book and they don't do it. So how'd you do it?
Yeah, I honestly, I never thought I'd write a book. It was just not on my radar at all because I don't consider myself to be a very disciplined person. And I definitely had this belief that in order to write a book, you had to be a disciplined person. But this is what I love about my work, that you can challenge beliefs, right? And I definitely had my beliefs around writing a book challenged because I host this podcast and I was talking to all these amazing people who had made career changes, and then obviously conversation with clients, and I don't know, like all these amazing stories started to emerge. And I guess in my line of work, I am repeating myself a little bit and the same themes kept popping up. And so I just started to take notes, like literally on my phone. I'd have a thought and I'd be like, oh, that's an interesting thought and or theory or whatever. And I'd just take notes. And then I sort of very tentatively started writing, not really thinking that I would ever finish writing it because I'm really good at starting things, less good at finishing them. And so I didn't tell anybody that I was sort of half writing a book because I'm like, well, it's just another thing that, not another thing, but it's going to be, then people are going to be like, hey, what's happening with the book? And then I'll be like, oh, yeah, nothing, it was just a pipe dream. So I really didn't tell anybody. And then it was a few months in that I was chatting to a friend and he said, oh, I'm writing this book, Yesim. And so I very tentatively admitted that I was sort of maybe kind of writing a book as well. And he said, well, let's hold each other accountable and make it happen. I was like, yes, that sounds like a great plan. And so we blocked out a certain amount of time every week where we would both sit and write our books. And then I got to like 25,000 words and I was like, well, this is actually going somewhere, and carving out that time is actually working. And I'm just going to block it out on my calendar for the next 6 months and see what happens.
Yeah.
And then before I knew it, I had 40, 50, 60, I can't remember, like several thousand words, enough for a book. And then I just had to put it into some kind of logical, or what I thought might be a logical format. And then I was like, okay, there is actually something here. And then I still was like, I don't know if this is actually any good. It's kind of weird doing something in isolation like that, where you don't really have anybody to, I'm not bouncing it off anybody. Nobody's going, oh, this is a load of rubbish. What the hell have you written? And then I sent it to a proofreader, and she was the one that was like, this is actually really good. I
Yeah.
was like, oh, okay, really? Are you just saying that? Or and then before I knew it, I had a book, and I still sometimes look at it and go, oh, I
Mhm.
actually did that. And it was I have to say, I really loved the process of writing, because it helps to solidify thoughts that you're having,
Yeah.
and then actually being able to share them with the world is really fun. And touch wood, so
Yeah.
far I've had really nice feedback. And I know at least 3 people have quit their jobs as a result of reading the book, which is not actually the aim. So there's a huge question mark on the front cover of the
Mhm.
book. And it really is a question like, are you ready to quit your job? I was going to call the book, Are you ready to quit your job? And it was just too long. So that's why it's Ready to Quit Your Job question mark. Because I don't advocate people just quitting their job willy-nilly. Like, I really do encourage people to put a lot of thought into it, and make the right decision for them at the right time.
I was looking at going into nonprofit. I was feeling
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
uninspired by what I was doing, and I just have this like service as such a important aspect of my life. And
Yeah.
then I actually talked to someone who founded a nonprofit who told me, Rabia, like, think about your well-being long term and your livelihood, and actually, like, you can probably serve others in a better way if you continue to take care of yourself in a job that pays really well and pursue nonprofit outside of that. And that really was eye opening because she's dedicated her life to it, but she also had the resources to do that. And so then I realized for me, no, I wasn't ready to quit my job, but I was
Mm-hmm.
ready to make moves to do other
Mm-hmm.
things that were really important outside of work. And so, like, just, there are the different ways of looking at it. And I do think your book, for the I've read the first, I'd say third. And first of all, I'll just give feedback and then people listening can hear it too. But what I think is, first of all, your personality shines through, which is great because you're bright and encouraging, but also very smart and like fact based. So it's cool. And you've developed these ideas of what you can quickly identify, like what kind of where you are in this, are you ready to quit your job journey? But then also, like, your anecdotes are really good and the quotes are really good. So I think it's a good mix of like your text, other people's stories, and quotes. And I just think it works really well. So I would say congratulations. I think it's an awesome book and I am enjoying reading it.
That's so nice. I don't know why, but it never gets old hearing people say nice things about your work. It's thank you for saying that.
So this passage really struck me and it's near the front of the book, but it was, whether they're conscious of it or not, most people seek meaning, control, and fun in their work. Why? Because when your job aligns with your passions, values, and interests, something magical happens. Your job becomes more than a means to earn a living. It becomes a constant source of inspiration, purpose, positive energy, and joy. Please show me someone who doesn't want that in their life. And that resonated with me because you can't always get that out of your work, but you can get it somewhere. But if you can, you should get out of your work. And do you do you identify with this more now than you used to, or is it something you realized earlier in your career, or is it something that came through working with people, I guess?
Oh, I love this question. I've not been asked this question before. Do you know, I've always had a sense that you should just enjoy what you love to do. And there's a story that I think I tell it in the book quite early on,
Mm.
that very early on in my career, I had this fear that I had this really clear vision of being at a dinner party with lots of fascinating people. And the person next to me turns to me and says, what have
Mm.
you done with your life? You know, when I'm in my 70s, 80s, whatever. And my biggest fear was that I would turn around and go, I worked for this big multinational all my life. I wanted to be able to say, do you know what? I did this and I tried that and I
Mm.
failed at this and I succeeded at that. And bloody hell, it was a fabulous ride. That's what I wanted to be able to say. And I really had this very early on in my career, like early 20s. And I think having that fear has been the driver for me to always find, not just in my career, but I just have a life that is like, yeah, this is awesome. And obviously your work is such a big part for me, for sure. Like I've got two kids and I guess potentially I could be a stay-at-home mum,
Yeah.
but that just never appealed. I love work. I love the challenge of it. I love the people aspect of it. I love learning new stuff. So yes, that's a very, very long answer to a very short question of yes, it's been very deliberate.
I think it is so important. I think your kids will see that too. They'll see this example at some point that, okay, mom was doing this and then she was able to build this other thing on her own. My parents had an auto repair shop, and my mom will sometimes put herself down about that because it wasn't some IT or corporate thing. But I actually admire that my parents had their own business, and it was a service business, and it was a business that they worked really hard at, and they, you know, were able to raise a family and have a house and everything with this business. And so the kids are always watching, and
Yeah,
seeing that. And I think
definitely.
that also the prestige of the job isn't that important a lot of the time to other people as it is to yourself, and that kind of thing. But being more satisfied in it is, I think,
Yeah, I agree.
you become a better builder too, you know.
I think I'm a better mum because of my work, if that makes sense. Because
Mm,
I'm
yeah.
more fulfilled as a human being. And I'm not saying everybody has to work at all. You know, some people are really happy being stay-at-home parents, and that's awesome. But
Mhm,
for me, I know that I'm much happier when I'm doing something that's meaningful to me. And you're right, your kids see that.
mhm,
They see whether you're happy or not. So hopefully I'm setting a good
mhm.
example. We'll see. We'll give it a few years and then we'll judge.
Yeah. Well, and the stay-at-home parents too, like that's, a privilege to be able to have a one
Yeah.
income household because it's not the reality for a lot of people now. I think the people who do end up doing that, like they're working in this job that's really tough. And there's a lot of women who are trying to go back to work after staying home for X amount of time with their kids and worried that they're losing something in their career. But it's like, well, you're having to do a lot.
Yeah.
Like I don't have kids, and I think that is a good decision ultimately for me, at least alone. Maybe with someone else it would have been different, but alone, yeah, because I can't imagine trying to
Yeah.
balance everything that parents
Yeah.
do and getting people out the
Totally.
door, like getting me out the door. Like I would like my mom here to get me out the door
Me
some
too.
days, or get me ready for the podcast. Robbie, you ever recording? Why are you still sitting around? I don't know. I don't know, mom. Because it's going to be on audio. Um, is there a job in your past that you just wish you hadn't spent your time at, or how do you feel about that?
Ah, I don't think so. I mean, I'm not somebody that sits and sort of dissects stuff that I've done anyway, generally speaking. Um, but I think if I did dissect it, I really, this is maybe a bit of a weird thing to say, but I just don't know if there is such a thing as a waste of time because I think you learn something from
Mm,
everything.
yeah,
And so it might not be the best use of your time, but I don't know if it's ever a waste. And so I think everything that I've
yeah,
done in my career to date has taught me something, consciously or subconsciously, that I bring to what I'm doing now. So yeah, I don't know
mm,
if I'd change anything because I think every job that you do teaches you or shows you things that you enjoy doing and things you don't enjoy doing. And
Yeah.
you get exposed to different personalities and different environments. And there's lessons in all of those, like, oh, actually, I really don't like being in a very busy office, or actually, I don't like being by myself for too long, or I really like working with people who energize me, or I really like people who just shut up and get their work done. Like, it's really like literally everything that you do, sort of, if you do take a bit of time to reflect on, and this is something that I do in my coaching, is really look at, what are the things in your current work that drain you of energy, and what are the things that
Mm.
fill you with energy, because there's clues all day, every day, as to what, what we should be doing more of and less of all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a great point. And yeah, just learning and finding out. I think it is important to know what you don't like and what you do like too, because sometimes you focus on one or the
Yeah.
other, but it's powerful to know what you want so you can go
Yeah.
after that.
And actually, a huge majority of people I work with get to a point in their careers where they are only focusing on the negative, and they stop seeing the
Mhm.
positive. And it might seem counterintuitive to do this, but the first thing we do is start looking for the things that they do enjoy in their current job, because there will be
Mm.
stuff. It's very rare that somebody says, I hate 100% of what I'm doing. There'll be
Yeah.
elements of things that they do enjoy. I've had a couple of people who say, because I get them to keep a diary of stuff that they've really enjoyed that day, what energized them, etc. And I have had one or two people that have done it for a week and come back and go, there was literally nothing. Nothing.
Mm.
And I think that's really, really sad.
Um,
So then we
yeah.
definitely,
Yeah.
we need to make changes quite quickly, because our life's too short to be
Mhm.
going through your days finding zero joy in what you're doing.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, totally. Yeah, that's rough. I mean, that's rough to hear and to
Yeah.
feel. So, your podcast, let's just I mean, I know I love having a podcast mostly because of the conversations, right? And who I get to talk to and what's your just give the name of your podcast
Yeah.
and
Well, I
talk
have the
about it.
best guests, as you know. It's
Totally.
called Your Big Career Move, and it's where you can find most podcasts, so Spotify, Apple, YouTube, etc. And don't know, I just love chatting with people. I love having these conversations like the ones we're having now. And because I was meeting really quite fascinating people who had amazing career change stories to tell, I was like, wow, I really want to showcase these stories. So I I think I've only done one or two episodes where it's just me talking, because I find it boring. I've been
Mm.
encouraged to do more of it, so maybe at some point. But what I really love about the podcast is having conversations with people and finding out what led to their career change, how they made the transition, who was part of the journey, what they've learned about themselves in the process. And the idea is that hopefully there are people out there listening who are thinking about making some change to their career because they're unhappy, and then being inspired by something that they've heard and making a change.
Mhm.
And that's why I loved sharing your story, because actually you're the perfect example of a toe dipper. So a toe dipper is somebody who
Mhm.
is in a full-time job, who actually quite likes what they do, but knows that there's something outside of their current career that there's a part of them that they want to fulfill. And you do that so beautifully, not just with your comedy but also your volunteer
Yeah.
work. So I was so happy that you agreed to be on the podcast, because you're like the poster girl for the toe dippers out
Thank
there.
you. Yeah, I mean, no, I feel lucky that I don't know, that I just kind of have the whatever it is that says just go try it, you know? Because I think
Yeah.
that's the big battle for people. They think of things, they'll search things on the internet, they'll maybe put something on their calendar, and then they just won't go. And I think that's the thing. It's like just go.
Yeah.
Because the worst you did, I mean, you
Yeah.
probably would have been sitting around thinking about, I should have gone. So just go. If it doesn't work out, then you know. But
Yeah.
I hate not knowing the answer to things in a way. Questions, that I can
Yeah.
answer like that. I
Yeah.
mean, other questions I'm not going to answer, but that one, like, should I go to this thing? Yes. Go. See how it is. Oh, it was awful. Don't go. It was great. Go again,
Yeah.
you know? But yeah,
Totally. Just try it out.
and then see. And you can't know. I mean, even like you think you a dream job, but sometimes it's not. And if you can do things in a low risk way that doesn't cost much and take much time, I don't know. It's just in a way, it's kind of like, yeah, take advantage of that opportunity.
Yeah. Yeah. But I think you're quite unique in that respect. I think there are quite a lot of people who are so used to get up, go to work, come home, eat, sleep, repeat, that it feels like a huge
Hmm.
stretch to do anything different out of their ordinary
Yeah.
existence. And so it's starting to break habits that we've got into, breaking cycles that we've got into, and, even just driving to work a different route, just to spark some new thoughts. But it's some people have to be
Yeah,
encouraged, very,
for sure.
very, friendly
Yeah.
encouragement to do something a little bit different.
Yeah. So we have our podcast, and if they listen to them, they'll get the encouragement.
I know so far, I know there are at least 3 people who have quit their job as a result of reading the
Yeah.
book. But I was talking to somebody the other day and they said, we all need a tipping point. There's a tipping point for people who make big changes. And that tipping point can be, bad health,
Hmm.
or it can be somebody gives you that shove, well, it can be being dismissed from your job, like it can be such a variety of things. And sometimes it is something like reading a
Yeah.
book or hearing a podcast or something that just you've been sitting on that fence and then it's just that final, yeah, okay.
Yeah. And it feels sudden, but it was kind of there for a long time. One thing you mentioned that I think is really important is around health, because people will have these either major health events in their life, or, we discussed I have a chronic illness that's kind of changed my perspective on life, or maybe even a parent gets ill or something happens that really just kind of jars them and says, oh, this is time for me. So, how do you just a little bit more about how do you think health plays a role in all of it?
Yeah, I mean, I think good health is sort of a prerequisite for making a good decision. So, like I said, like the work that I do is really to help people make a very big decision that's going to have an impact on pretty much every area of their life. I mean, it's very rare that a big career change isn't going to affect, your relationships, your financial status, et cetera, et cetera. And so it's something that I absolutely advocate spending time over and being in the right frame of mind. And your health massively plays into that. I think if you're in chronic pain, or you're not sleeping well, or you're feeling sluggish because you're not eating the right foods, etc., then that can cloud your judgment. And I have seen people make poor decisions based purely on the fact that they aren't thinking
Mm.
straight, which
Mhm.
I don't mean for that to sound patronizing, but it's hard to think straight when you haven't slept well,
Yeah.
when you've been feeding yourself a load of rubbish food, when you haven't exercised, etc., etc. And so I cover all these topics in my book, and I think sometimes people are like, well, what's sleep got to do, for example, with career change? And I'm like, well, like, when's the last time you made a really good decision on after a really bad night's
Yeah.
sleep? Like, we should be looking after ourselves really, really well. And that's why I think some people go through this whole process, whether it's reading the book or coaching or whatever, and then they realize that, like, they start to look after themselves
Mm.
better and they have a change in mindset. And that's why they then become a remainer, as I call them. It's somebody that goes through the process, goes through the motions, and decides ultimately that they're in the right place. They are working for an organization that they actually quite like. They like their colleagues. Their boss isn't too bad at all. They're earning good money, etc. Like, it's ticking all the right boxes, but they were feeling negative about their work because, they were tired
Yeah.
or they were stressed out or whatever. And just by going through this process of self-reflection, they come to the realization that actually this is working for me. I just needed to have a slight mindset shift and a new appreciation, I suppose, of the situation I'm
Hmm.
in.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. And yeah, you're right. I mean, people, when you don't sleep well, you're emotionally not going to be where you want to be for this kind of emotional decision,
Yeah,
right? So,
yeah.
so we're going to get into the last part, which is the fun five. It's five questions to ask everyone. But first, I like to ask every guest, like, do you have any advice or mantra you want to share that you just kind of follow that's important to you when you have a conversation to share with people?
I don't know if I have a mantra. I just, I guess I just, but this is just for me,
Yeah.
I just think life is for living and you should do what makes you happy,
Mm.
and then that has a ripple effect on everybody around you.
Yeah. So now we'll get into the fun five. So, five questions I ask every guest. The first one, what is the oldest t-shirt you have and still wear?
Can I just say that I love these questions and I'm really glad that you're asking them. But here is some life advice, okay? Don't read your
Yes.
emails before you go to sleep. So I made the stupid rookie mistake of reading my emails just before I went to sleep last night. And you'd very kindly sent me through these fascinating questions. So speaking of sleep, I mean, I blame you for me going to sleep way too late last night because then I literally couldn't switch off. I was like, these are really great questions, but oh my God, what am I going to say? So I'm just pulling your leg,
No, no,
obviously,
it's
but it
fine.
did make me, it did take me longer than, it takes me about 3 seconds normally to fall asleep. It took me a good minute last night. So the t-shirt, my oldest t-shirt, I think, is a t-shirt that I bought in Italy on
Nice.
holiday about 10 years ago. And I really love this t-shirt. It's nothing special, actually, but I don't know. I just really like the way it fits. I like the way it looks. And it's ancient. It's got holes in it. It's kind of crusty under the arms. It's not, I mean, it's not, if you look at it closely, it's not a good t-shirt, but I love wearing it. So it's one of those that I'm thinking I should probably get rid of. And then I go, it's clean. I might as well wear it one more time. And then it goes back in the washing basket. And then before I know it, it's in my drawer again. And then it's kind of on repeat. So I still own it and I still wear
Nice.
it. I just tuck in the bits that have holes in them.
Exactly. Yeah. What else are we supposed to do?
Hmm.
Okay, so this one I really like because I love the film Groundhog's Day and music. But if every day was Groundhog's Day, like in the film where Bill Murray wakes up to his alarm clock playing the same song every single day, what song would you choose for your alarm clock to play?
There's a Turkish song, and the lyrics are, translated something about waking up to my mother's voice. That's just popped into my head, and I'm like, oh, that's actually quite nice, isn't
Yeah,
it? Wouldn't it be nice if I just had my mum whispering in my ear, "Hey, Yesim, it's time to wake up." It's by a singer called Sertab Erener, who's my favorite Turkish
nice.
singer, and I can't think what the name of the song is right now, but I can send it to you later. It's a very sweet song. Mm.
Good. All right. Then this one, coffee or tea or neither?
Or both?
Yeah, you can have both.
Is that an option?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, tea and coffee equally. I only have one of each a day because I I get heart palpitations otherwise.
I know.
But yeah, I love a good cup of coffee and I love a good cup of tea, and they taste so much better when somebody else has made them for you as well.
It's true. Um, can you think of a time that you like laughed so hard you cried, or just something that when you think about it makes you laugh?
Yeah, I mean, you might have noticed I laugh a lot. I also
Mhm.
cry. I cry at adverts, like really
Same.
ridiculous.
Yeah.
Um, Do laugh a lot. And actually, I was talking to my husband about this the other day. I was like, you know what? When did we last like properly laugh together? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, he makes me laugh every day. He's a very funny man. My children make me laugh every day. I'm lucky that I've got lots of friends who make me laugh every day. I make myself laugh with like not because I'm funny, just because I'm stupid sometimes. Um, but there is a TV program that for both of us sprang to mind that we have been in stitches, which is called Life in Pieces.
Oh,
And I
yeah.
can't, it's an American sitcom-y thing. Tom Hanks' son is in it, and there's a
Yeah.
character
Oh,
in that, and I don't know his name. He plays the bald, tall, bald guy, and he just comes out with the funniest lines that we've literally been like, that uncontrollable laughter, and it's just
yeah.
ridiculous. And then one of us will finish laughing, and then set the other one off again, and that when we just keep like infecting each
Yeah.
other. But yeah.
Um, all right. So the last question, who inspires you right now?
I'm really stuck on this, Rabia. Like, I really don't know because I think my brain is trying to find one person that inspires me, and I think the
Yeah.
truth is that I am inspired by different things that I see other people doing or saying. And so it's really hard for me to just pinpoint one person. I think I'm inspired by stuff that I see all the time by, lots of
Mhm.
different people. Like even my children, they inspire me. So yeah, I really struggled with this question, and I'm gonna be a complete cop out and say there aren't one or two people that immediately spring to mind. It's just
Yeah.
a plethora of things that I see and hear.
But that's a nice view of the world, you know.
I hope so. Were you hoping I'd say like Donald Trump or something? Like just one person.
Did he read your, well, I don't think he could read your book. But I was gonna say maybe he read your book and decided he wanted to change his
Well,
career. That's why he's doing
you
this
never
to the
know.
US and everyone in the
You
world.
never know. You never know. Do you know he does actually get a mention in my book? You might not have got to it yet. So
I didn't get
you'll
to it
have to
yet.
feedback when you get to that bit.
And I can't burn the book because it's on my Kindle. So what am I gonna do?
I'll
Just
send you a hard copy just for the satisfaction.
um look, he had a different career
Yeah.
before and it was just
Yeah.
different. Anyway, that's too much. That's a whole other, like, I was thinking about that actually, like, oh, do I start a podcast on just things I don't like and just me talking about them? And then I think it just turned into a podcast about him and it wouldn't go very well.
It'd be just a one-way street.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
reason I talk about him, and feel
um
free to edit this out, is that I find Trump interesting in that he comes across as so sure of himself.
yeah,
And I think sometimes we could all do with a dose of that.
sure. That I agree with.
And I think we all suffer from, whether you want to call it imposter syndrome or just lack of confidence. Like we've all experienced what that feels like at some point in our lives. And I think
Yeah.
when you're making a big decision like that's really going to affect your life, to feel confident. You want to feel like you're making the right decision. And
Mhm.
and so I do talk about channeling your inner Trump, which is kind of like the
Yeah.
extreme version, right? The like almost deluded self-belief. I do say in the book, obviously, some people are massively offended just by hearing his name. So if Trump, is going to offend you, just think of somebody else who's really confident and at least seems to have this unlimited amount of self-belief, and just channel that because it does work.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a metaphor. Donald
Hmm.
Trump.
Hmm.
Awesome. So if people want to look you up either for coaching or for your podcast or your book, where do you want them to find you? And of course, I'll have links in the show notes too.
Thank you. Well, I think I'm the only Yesim Nicholson in the world. My name is spelled Yesim. And my website is Yes Career Coaching. I think we mentioned the podcast is Your Big Career Move, and the book is called Ready to Quit Your Job, question mark, and it's available on Amazon worldwide. So yeah, and I am probably most active on LinkedIn if anybody wants to connect with me on social media.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Yesim. This has been a lot of fun, and it was good to learn about you this time.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. We know everything about each other now. That's it. There's nothing more to know.
There isn't. I know. We've achieved it. Thanks for listening. You can learn more about the guest and what was talked about in the show notes. Joe Maffia created the music you're listening to. You can find him on Spotify at Joe, Maffia. Rob Metke does all the design, for which I am so grateful. You can find him online by searching Rob, Metke. Please leave a review if you like the show, and get in touch if you have feedback or guest ideas. The pod is on all the social channels at More Than Work Pod or at Rabiah Comedy on TikTok. While being kind to others, don't forget to be kind to yourself.